very, very much. Welcome to Helen Miller. Welcome to our space. As we are here today to actually talk about behavior, before I talk about anything else, the first bit about behavior, can you please just double check your phone and make sure it's on silent? We don't care if it's on silent. You can still use it, tweet if you'd like. We don't care about that, but just double check for us if you could.
You do care about that.
We got trouble.
But first things first, health and safety.
I'll keep her under control.
There is no planned fire drills. So I'm around, if you see me screaming, run. There's the exit as you came, right behind us and right around the back. And as we're talking here about design and behavior, just to prove to you guys that design actually can influence your behavior, being in a space like this, I'll use a great example. Firstly, let's just quickly think about this, and if you've ever done this, just think about you in this space. You're driving up to the IKEA car park, you walk in, you're there just to buy a set of spoons, but for some reason, you follow that line all the way through. All the way through. There are shortcuts left, right, and center. You can turn around at any point. You can escape. But no, what do? You follow the line. And you keep shopping and you keep buying the things you don't. So just a great example just to understand that design actually can influence our behavior. So without further ado, I'm going to pass over to the masters. I hope you guys have a wonderful evening. If you want to see anything else about Helen Miller tonight, feel free to tap me on the shoulder and have a chat. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for attending tonight's event to celebrate the launch of My 31 Practices, the new book by Alan Williams, Steve Payne, and John Montgomery. Thank you again, Bertie, and Helen Miller for hosting tonight's event. We're always very grateful for your hospitality, and this is a wonderful venue as well for an event like this. So I have the pleasure of introducing our authors to you tonight. Before that, I just want to introduce myself. I'm Martin Liu of the publisher, Lid Publishing, the very proud publisher of our authors' books. So on your far right, we have Alan Williams, who basically coaches service sector organisations, both in the UK and overseas. He is the founder and managing director of Service Prime Global, and his first book was The 31 Practices, which is the book aimed at organisations and managers. And then to your far left, Steve Payne is an international executive coach, writer, and motivational speaker. He is the founder and CEO of NLP Dynamics and the Academy of Coaching and Training. Previously, Steve had a career in acting, appearing in theatre, film, and television over a number of years. And then in the centre, we have John Montgomery, who is a conceptual artist, whiteboard animator, and information product creator. He was responsible for all the amazing graphics in My 31 Practices. Now, usually I would hand over to our authors to talk about their book and the ideas within it. But tonight we thought we would do something slightly different. And Nick, back here, has agreed kindly to talk about the book. So Nick, I hand over.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. How are we? Wow, my goodness me. I was not expecting that. Wow. Don't I feel good all of a sudden? You must be values sort of people, aren't you? Definitely. Good evening. My name is Nick Moore. Just to give you a bit of context, I am one of Steve's students, actually. And I run an organisation called Mindset Communications. We do conferences, we do videos, which I'll come on to in a minute. And I'm also an executive coach now as well, all thanks to NLP Dynamics. And just whilst we're on the subject of video, you might have seen that we've got a camera up the back. This is part of the promotional launch process. If anybody's not comfortable with being on video, just see either myself or Ed at the end. We'll take a quick picture of you, make sure that you're not featured. So there we go. So what we thought would be great is to just interview the gentleman and find out a little bit more about the background and the history of the book. And please, if you have any questions, it'd be wonderful if you could ask the authors those questions as well. So, without any further ado, tell me a little bit about the book. Tell me about the history of the book. Where did it come from?
I'll start.
Somebody needs to.
Always a wallflower.
So the beginning, I guess, was the first iteration of 31 practices. So the 31 practice approach originally was designed for organizations, so to help them translate their stated values into the behavior of their employees. And I knew that it worked, but I wanted to really have some sort of academic endorsement of that. So I thought it'd be a good idea to co-author a book with a psychologist, which I did. And then during that process, it just occurred, well, this approach could have benefit to us on a personal level. So we live in a very, very busy world where we react a lot to what's going on around us. So instead of that, why not identify what's really important to us, what we believe in strongly, and then find a way to really condition your behavior so that you're behaving in accordance with what you believe in. Very simple. And so that was the birth of my 31 practices.
And just to then take that a stage further in terms of how Alan and I came to be working on this, and John, of course, as well, is that Alan came to one of the courses that we were running, an NLP course, and values are very much at the heart of NLP, because values are very much at the heart of us and how we do what we do and why we do, very importantly, what we do. And there was a great synergy, a very obvious synergy between the message in my 31 practices and the messages that we were delivering on the course. And then Alan came up to me at the end and asked a question, popped the question.
Will you write a book with me?
Yes, exactly. I did sweat for a second until you said write a book.
I was talking to Richard earlier about this. So Richard was sat next to me, and I said to him in the morning, I think I'm going to ask Steve if he would review the first book with an NLP lens. And when I sat back down and said he's agreed to do that. And then Steve started doing his stuff, and I just thought, oh, this is so aligned. And I said to Richard, do you know what, at the coffee break, I'm going to ask him if he'd write a book with me. I think he must have thought I was crazy. Here we are.
14 months later, yeah. Yes, so thank you again for the synergy with Alan and Richard as well.
And then, John, how did you get involved in the project then?
Well, I used to work, I did a project with Alan. We were trying to work out three or 4 years ago as a whiteboard animator, so promoting this project and distilling the ideas of the book into visuals, really. So that's my sort of home territory, the visuals, and that facilitated the two of us, Steve and Alan, and we worked together a little bit on NLP, which was something I was doing a little bit of research into a little bit earlier. So it's quite a fortuitous meeting that through there, and then you know, I'm quite a proponent of NLP now as well. So that's how we had our first meet. Yeah.
So there was some real sort of synergies really here between the three of you. And I mean, I am sitting here feeling very, very, very chuffed with myself, because I have actually read it. I'm feeling very good about that.
You're the one.
I'm the one. The advanced copy I was given. I don't know if anybody else has read the book or had a chance to finish the book yet, but really quite spectacular piece of work, I think. What sort of outtakes did you take from the book yourself?
I got that if you do this on a regular basis, it will absolutely change you and change the results that you get in the world. It's about instilling it into you as a habit so that it becomes the new you.
Yeah. It's really, really powerful stuff. I mean, we're talking about values, and I'd like to come back to values if I could. We talk about things like the values superhero. Why is it that values lies very, very much at the heart of this book? What's the importance of values?
Well, the word you just used, importance, I mean, values are what are important to us. And they operate largely at an unconscious level. I mean, if you've ever had an experience yourselves where somebody's asked you to do something that compromises a value that you have, how do you feel? You know, you feel it not right. And it's not you telling yourself you feel not right, it's you feel it in your stomach or somewhere physically. It's your body telling you that's not right for you. So values are powerful because they drive behavior. Values are also key in the decisions that we make. So they're such an integral part of us as human beings. And if you connect on the level of values, then you really are resonating in a powerful way with other people. So that's why values, we were talking about organizational values and how, if you look at the top 50 companies in the world, for example, one of the common themes that runs through there is that they have a value system which is expressed not only in words, say these are our company values, but they're also lived from the CEO and public facing all the way through to the intern that started the week before. And it's about living in alignment with those values, because then that becomes very powerful when you're in alignment. And so values really are the key towards behaviour and congruence.
And we have done a lot of work at corporate level. I'm actually going to pass it across to you in terms of, this book is very much focused on the individual, isn't it? So your background is much more in helping companies to align the values, but this is specifically about the individual. Can you tell us a little bit more about the approach of this particular book?
Yes, but before I do that, can I tell you a story? So it's just popped into my head because it's Steve talking about when your values are trampled on, and this story involves Lucy, who's sitting here, and it's around about 21 years ago, and I was on a development course, and there was an exercise where you had two teams who were competing, and the way that it worked was that you had to send your negotiator to negotiate with the other team in turn. And it got to the last negotiation, and we thought we were in a really good position. I was the last negotiator. At the beginning of the process, our brief had been anything goes, but you must tell the truth. So we went through this. I played the last negotiation piece and was confident, and we lost. And our team was devastated, and I'm quite competitive, so I was like, what's going on? So at the break, I said to the other negotiator, I'm really confused because I thought we had won that. And he said, well, I lied to you. I was furious. Nearly hit him. The drive home, it was in the Midlands, Jimi Hendrix on full volume, windows down, too fast. Played Lucy at Tiddlywinks 5 times, beat her every time. I was mad. But it's because fairness is really important. Yeah. And so that's it, to your point. So your question about this, it's the individual application of the 31 practice approach, and it's very, very simple. Identify what it is that you want to do it, understand the impact that it's had, and then change a bit if you need to. So it's just a very simple and practical thing focused on daily habit.
And can you tell us in maybe sort of about 30, 45 seconds, your elevator pitch, how does the book work? How does it work, my 31 practices?
So just that. So first you identify your values and you articulate 31 practical day-to-day behaviours that are explicitly connected to those values. You then practice them one a day, and you assess how well you've done them and the impact that it's had on you and people around you. And then if you need to change the way you do things, you do. And if you're very successful with the way that you've done it, then do it again. And that's it.
And it does work. Sorry.
And there's a wonderful, from being engaged with information, there's a wonderful, easy first step in, isn't there? And it's just exactly that. There's an easy first step, just a first step towards it, and you're away. You don't need to forward think or plan. It's just, and it can be something really simple, just something day to day. And as soon as you start to get into that habit, the rest comes pretty naturally.
I mean, I think that's what's really quite powerful about the book is this whole simplicity. Because I am doing my 31 practices myself, so I have a behaviour, and we were talking earlier on and said that actually for the last 3 days I haven't done my behaviours, and I feel bad about it. So I feel something as a direct result. So that's why I think simplicity is just such a great thing. That's one of the foundations of this book. Can I talk a little bit about design now? Because tell me about the process that you went through and what sort of patterns of behaviour you identified and fell into when you were writing the book. Because it seems like it was a lot of synergy. And how did design actually help in the writing of the book as well?
Well, the starting point is drawing on these two guys' very, very deep knowledge, and we as that came forward, so we worked to get to a textual point, but then we had a core meeting at that point, and that's when it begins to come alive for me. So I can read to a certain extent, but it has to be processed several times. And then we had a great meeting at the British Library, where we sort of sat together and just read through the texts. But this is when it comes alive a little bit as an illustrator, as an illustrative process as well. So we're talking there's something to read, but these guys speak really well, so that's coming as well. So it begins to make these ideas sort of pop out of nowhere. And for me, that's a really, really interesting part of the process. But then hopefully there's sort of a feedback loop in there as well, where hopefully we all work together, and then that sparks another idea, then another. So it's a nice divergent thing.
Because there is a part in the book about metaphors. So I'm just latching on to the fact that the designs may have helped you in the actual creation of this book. Was that the case?
Well, again, metaphor and story, if you talk about some of John's illustrations, they could sort of conceptualize some of the ideas. And just by looking at some of the illustrations, it speaks volumes. And it's the same with a metaphor, because a metaphor, a story, we all pull out things from a story that mean something to us or help us understand something. So the whole idea of speaking in metaphor or talking in visuals helps us all actually see things from multiple perspectives. And I think that's a big part of the way that we work together. It was a lot of generative collaboration, ideas that came because we shared so much. So even though Alan came from the perspective of the 31 practices, and John from the illustrations and whiteboards, and getting the ideas that we were talking about and conceptualizing them. And I was bringing a different kind of lens to it, that we absolutely shared and crossed over into each other's territories. And I think all added something extra, because every time you bring another perspective, you see things that you didn't see. Yeah. So it never stops. It's like the learning process, and you never stop learning. So that was important.
The other thing that helps, I think, is that none of us are authors. So it's not like here's some words that have to do the job on their own. Because that's very limiting. And so right from the beginning, we wanted this to be more than a book, so more than just written word. And I think that the illustration stuff adds just 100% to what it would have been without. And similarly, there's a section on stories, so people that have used my 31 practices and their individual stories. And again, that's my favourite part of the book, just reading the impact that this has had on those people.
I think from somebody who has actually read the book, I don't know about you, but when you read some of these sort of quite heavy management books or self-help books or whatever, they can be quite difficult to get through. Whereas I felt that the visuals in this were just a wonderful way of bringing the text to life, if that makes sense. So did you feel that as well? It's quite unusual to have a book with so many designs that just get the message across like that. You talked about sort of learning a lot of things. Was there any sort of unexpected wins, or was there anything that you really learned through the whole process of writing the book? Good or bad? There's a few smiles going on.
It can be hard work, yeah. I remember, I'll write a book with John. Alan, rather, I'll write a book. Right, when's the next meeting? And it's funny, because we were talking about the journey through it, where it starts quite creative, and you're talking about ideas and concepts and how it's all going to shape up, and we get very, very creative with it. And then it kind of changes shape. The more you move towards the conclusion of the book, the more it becomes about detail. And it becomes about some of those meetings that we had, where we were literally going through every single word, page by page in the book, which can become quite laborious. And it's amazing what you miss as well, what you don't pick up. And so for me, that whole process of, I love options myself, and I love the creativity, and when it comes to detail, I'd rather pass that on to somebody else. But of course, when you have to force yourself to do it, it's a really interesting learning curve. A really interesting.
How about yourself?
It was a very nice arc of we start off. Shall we do a book? Yeah, that's fine. And then you get into the first few months are really good, and you can get a long way in that time. And then exactly that, it gets to the next bit, and it's like, we probably could have written another book or two in the time that we've just taken to go through these fine details of things. So yeah, as a visual person, that was I'm itching now. So, that sort of level of detail of work, but it does need to be done.
And for me, I use this analogy in working with small groups, but I don't know if any of you remember running the 400 meters at school and how it felt when you get to 300 meters. It's tough, but you don't stop, do you? You've got to get to the finish line, and that was like this project. And we're here. We made it.
What about your favourite
Lift it back
memory?
up again, please. Yeah.
What about your favourite memory? What was the nicest part of writing this book? Next question.
My favourite part of this whole journey, I think, was saying to Richard, I'm going to ask him to write a book with me. That's going to live with me forever. That's a brilliant, brilliant memory.
Fantastic.
And I think just, again, that whole thing of collaborating and working together in a team was, it's, I find that hugely rewarding and fulfilling, working with other people and just learning from each other, because we've all got very different skill sets, as everybody has, and that's one of the great things about working together with groups.
Yeah.
You learn more about yourself as well as about other people,
Yeah.
which is always interesting.
So what then makes this book different from a lot of other books? Because, in terms of, this is quite a bold statement, but, I'm with you, it's true. Releasing the power of your values for authentic happiness. I mean, how does this book contribute to someone's authentic happiness?
So for me, the difference with this book is that it's not about you just reading it. And I've read another self-help book. Too many people do that. And nor is it about us preaching, which is also the case in many self-help books. So all this is a guide. But then it needs your hard work and effort to make it happen for you. And if you choose to do that, then it will. And if you don't, then it won't. Mm-hmm. So we say in the book that it's powerless in itself, but if you apply it in your own way, it will be powerful.
I do genuinely agree with that, because I think I come very much from a corporate background. I don't know if other people in the room do, but I don't know if you see a lot of companies, they might pay a little bit of lip service to the importance of values, and realistically then on a day-to-day basis, they don't really bring them to life. And I almost want to shout to them and say, what do you expect? What do you expect? This got to be lived. It does. In fact, there was somebody who made a comment on the book and said that they were surprised that it hadn't taught them their values. Can you tell us that little story, if it's appropriate?
Yeah, sure. So we've had fantastic reviews on Goodreads and Amazon, but Caroline will know that we've had one review that said, I was really excited about it, thought it was a great topic, but then I felt a bit let down because it didn't teach me what my values were. And that's not what it does. It's it's not a shortcut for lazy people. Yeah. Not that person.
That's the next version.
There's the sales guy.
It's a two-pager as well, isn't it?
Does anybody have any questions at this stage that you'd like to ask the guys?
Yeah. I just wondered, each of you, when you realised that making your values a conscious, almost a decision to take notice of, or when that was for you, and what was the background behind it, making that an important choice?
Okay, so I've got two stories that demonstrate this. So I was explaining this concept a few years ago now to a guy in an office near Victoria, and I'd used the example of, if compassion is your value, then you might choose a practice of offering help to a stranger to put it into practice. And afterwards, I was walking through Victoria Station. I was late from my next meeting. This old lady opened her purse, and too fast, and money went everywhere. And so I don't know why, but I couldn't continue to my meeting. I went and helped her, gave her some of the money back. She said, I'm an old age pensioner, love, can't afford to throw it away. And we had a nice chat, and I walked away afterwards feeling great. Then a couple of weeks later, on a tube on the underground, jam-packed, rammed, And this guy lost his earphones by somebody taking them off the train, and he couldn't move. He was just like this. Train doors closed, he looked resigned, train didn't move, train doors opened, and I looked down, and on the platform were the earphones. So I just bent down, picked them up, handed them across to him, and he was delighted. Now, I don't know whether I would have noticed that if I hadn't practiced the first time. And now it's just normal to offer, are you lost? Are you looking for that map because you need to get somewhere? And so that proved to me that you can actually, behaviour can lead habit.
Yeah. I think one of the things that I sort of picked up very, very briefly, sorry, was that you'd mentioned in one of the previous classes that you'd given to me about this reticular activating system, which I believe is a part of, you'll be able to, I tell you what, why don't you tell them what the reticular activating system is and why it fits into this?
It fits into this because, we're bombarded with information all the time. And so what do we pay attention to? Because we can't pay attention to everything. So I don't know if you've ever noticed that when you decide you want to buy something or you fix your mind on something, then suddenly you become far more aware of whatever that is around you. So if you want to buy a red jacket, you might see people with red jackets all the time or whatever it may be. So amongst other functions that it has in terms of regulating breathing and heartbeat and so on, is it acts as a kind of sorting office. So what's important to you, it makes you more aware of it at an unconscious level. So it's not as if you suddenly want to buy a certain type of car and then the next day you notice those cars everywhere. They haven't kept them in a garage overnight waiting for you to want to buy them and then release them out onto the streets. It's now that you're much more aware of it because your unconscious picks up any element of that and brings it to your conscious awareness. So it's the same with for example, setting habits and putting things in your mind. When you focus on something and make it important to you, then you do genuinely become more aware of those things in your day-to-day life. So that's why it's really important. It's really important in goal setting, and this is all about goal setting as well, because these are all goals, practices and so on. So it's very important to program that, because you can program it and become more aware.
And hence why one practice per day, it's top of your mind for that particular day. So, has anybody got any other questions to ask?
Yeah. So on this question about living it. First of all, congratulations on writing the book.
Thanks, Ian.
I really enjoyed it. I read it on a plane on the way recently to New York. Read half on the way there, half on the way back, and watched a couple of movies, and had a nice meal and a snooze. So it's not that's to endorse the point that it's a nice, quick, easy read, and I love the illustrations. And I flew back on Halloween, and I was very aware that the next day was the 1st of November. And I thought, right, I'll start on the 1st and work my way through every day. And I got back and I had various things to catch up with and didn't get around to doing it, and then it was kind of spoiled because it's now the 2nd. So now the 1st of December's come and gone, I haven't done it. So my question is for Nick. Why haven't you done your behaviours?
Because I didn't have a coach there.
What are you going to do about it?
Wow. Thanks, Sunshine. I'll remember this one. Yeah.
Have you already done it but just forgotten about it?
Yeah, I'll go with that one because it sounds a little bit better. But no, it's a very, very good point. It comes back to what it's doing.
I felt very motivated, but converting it into action than just doing anything. What's the?
I've got a really good
tip. You have to start. Yeah.
You just do it.
Yeah.
Just do it. And don't get all uptight about it has to start on the 1st. So, Ian, I suggest you start tomorrow.
I suggest you don't watch that.
Not today, yeah.
I suggest you don't watch that video of you being the anti-version of this. If anyone's seen it from you, World Values Day. Ian plays a character whose behaviours are everything that's anti this, and then he turns up on his way, chaos around him as he's ignoring all these people who he could help. And then he turns up and he's the motivational speaker on values, which is quite interesting. So
it's a very, very good video. I saw it the other day. Actually, it's very. I highly recommend it as well. World Values Day, is it on that website? Yeah, fantastic.
Actually, can we segue to a couple of people here that can talk about a couple of values-based things, because this isn't just about my 31 practices. So, Liz, would you like to say just a couple of words about the UK Values Alliance and also World Values Day, and then
sure.
Jackie. We'll talk about values at heart.
Can I
just 2 minutes, yeah.
So just very quickly, thanks, Alan. So the UK Values Alliance, we're a collaborative organisation. So perhaps this is the fruits of this collaboration. Members are people who work in the field of values or are interested in values. We get together on a quarterly basis and we network and we share and learn together. But importantly, we collaborate on projects. So our most recent project or campaign has been to start the first ever World Values Day, which was on the 20th of October this year. And Ian was one of our stars in the video just mentioned. It was such great fun, and more than that, we managed to reach a couple of 100,000 people actually in the end with a very simple call to action, kind of like the 31 practices here, which is think about one of your most important values and put it into action. And that was the call to action for World Values Day. Very exciting. So we're going to do it again. So in 2017, on the 19th of October, if you'd like to join in, have a look at the website, worldvaluesday.com. And also, if you'd like to join us at any stage in the UK Values Alliance and have a look at what we're up to and so on, then have a look at our website too, valuesalliance.co.uk. Yeah. And there are a few people here tonight, Lindsay and Jackie and Alan and so on.
Is it true people can become a member?
And people can become a member.
Seamless.
Yes, you can enroll to become a member for a small membership fee on an annual basis to come to our quarterly meetings and get access to a whole lot of materials, and also to use our shop window to put forward what you do if that's of interest to you. So our aim is putting values at the heart of society. We have members who work in all sorts of different sectors, business, but also education and public sector and health and so on. So it'd be great to see more people there.
Thanks, Liz.
So for the last couple of years or so, me and him have been in cahoots, and in a purely platonic and highly respectable kind of fashion, I hasten to add. We run a campaign from the 1st to the 14th of February, and it's called Values at Heart, and it's designed to give you, lovely people and everybody you know, access to one of the world's leading values profiling technologies for nothing. I should also say you can buy it off us, of course, at other times of year. But like Steve was saying, this thing about values being something you feel, and they're really deeply interwoven in your sense of self. The trouble with that is they sit in your limbic system, which is part of your unconscious mind, and it has no vocabulary. It knows what it feels, and it feels it very strongly, but to then try and put that into words can be very, very hard. So we have this fantastic instrument. It's not a light touch, it's not an easy read. It's 40 minutes of your time, but it's an investment well worth putting in. So, Values at Heart, partnered with 31 Practices, 1st to the 14th of February next year. Do it or miss out, basically.
Thanks.
So, any other final questions?
Please.
Anybody else? Well, sorry.
I'm halfway through the book, so apologies for not finishing it yet. I will on the train now. There's quite a few references, obviously, to the website, my 31 practices. So, in terms of aligning the two, those who have joined the website, do you find that they will then complete the activities compared to those who haven't joined the website?
Yeah, so feedback is that it's easier because, so for instance, you get an email at the beginning of the day saying this is what your practice is, and you get one at the end of the day saying, did you do it? So it kind of helps. But it's not, it's not supposed to be essential. You don't have to do it. I used to keep just a piece of paper in my wallet with my practices on, so you don't have to, but people say that it makes it easier.
And in terms of the quotes that you use for the books, which I absolutely love,
Thank you.
have you just kept a bank of those over time?
No, they were carefully selected in the moment. Seriously, we spent quite a bit of time, didn't we, identifying quotes that would bring out those core messages, because again, it's similar to the illustration, the job that the illustrations do. People tend to be able to take in quotes and the message that's within them more easily than a lot of copy. And we just find that that's a really great way to convey rich information.
You've kept it really simplistic, and I'm using quite a few of it. I work within marketing, so I deal with values all the time, and corporations who don't stick to them. So I've been using the quotes a lot. So
Great, good.
Fantastic. Well, sorry, yes.
I'm really sorry. As you know, when you're teaching, when you're coaching, very often you're the one that comes away with the biggest learning process. Or I'm just wondering, as you wrote this book, you were obviously putting years of techniques, years of learning, years of experience into this book. When the book was finally finished, did you actually come away thinking, gosh, I've really learned something? And if you did, what was that?
Can I answer that first? Well, I'm the luckiest person here because I've just shortcut all their learning from many.
Hang on, there might be a lot of money for that.
I'm feeling quite happy and lucky.
Very good point.
I think this thing of awareness is, for me, the biggest thing. Because the thing about awareness is you can't respond to things unless you're aware of it. So the very first point for change really is to be aware of something. And it doesn't matter, I don't think, how old you are or where you are in your life. There are always new things to become aware of about yourself, about the world in general, other people, and so on. And I think that for me was a big thing, because in writing, it's like critical reflection, really. When you are forced to think about something, then you can get, it's just what coaching is, new ways of looking or thinking about a particular thing. You get new insight. And when you're working with more than one person, of course, you get multiple levels of insight. So for me, it doesn't matter if you've done this stuff 100 times before. There's always something new to learn if you look at something from a different perspective. So for me, the biggest thing was more awareness, and also linking back to things I've done in my past. I lived in South Africa for a number of years. I ran a company there. I had a fantastic life. Everything was nice and easy, and I just realized at one point it really wasn't taking me forward as a person at all. And so I resigned my directorship, I gave away my shares in the company, and I came back without a job. And when in writing the book, all those kind of incidents in your life, when you begin to realize what's the driver and the motivator for that, and you realize, for example, that there's a value there that's not being satisfied, or there's a value that's being compromised. And it's just awareness. And I think awareness is everything. So for me, it's even more levels or increased levels of awareness. So that stuff. That stuff. Yeah.
And mine,
Sorry.
Okay, no.
No. I was.
My learning, I think, is it sounds corny. I think if I was there, I might think this sounds a bit corny, because it has, for me, just reinforced how important values are. So 3 of mine are collaboration, creation, and excellence. And this has played to those. And that's why it's been challenging at times and hard work, but never hard work, if you see what I mean. It just needed to be done.
Thank you.
It's a lovely poetic ending there. I was going to suggest that if there are any more questions, that we could continue over a glass of wine.
Good idea.
That sounds quite
Great
good,
man.
but
Insightful.
I would like to congratulate you from my own perspective. I think it's a fantastic piece of work. I love the designs. It's just such a refreshing way of absorbing this information. It's powerful, powerful, powerful stuff. And just a big well done and congratulations. And I wish you the very, very best with the book. I really, really do. So
Thanks,
thank
Nick.
you. Thank you very much. And if you'd like to go and grab a glass of wine outside. Thank you very much.